ABC data, which stands for antecedent, behavior, and consequence data, can be very useful when collecting data on a behavior, defining that behavior, and helping to find the function and an appropriate replacement behavior. And looking at an ABC data sheet, it is important to include some information. This is a basic sheet. Sometimes they can be more customized so that there's less writing necessary and you can just kind of circle things. But being able to have the student's name in place, the date, this can be a date range if this is a behavior that occurs so infrequently that you can cover a week or a month, or it could be just one day. And then where the target behavior is, if you've already defined the behavior, like for instance, aggression 1 or self-injurious behavior 1, then you can just write that here. If it hasn't been defined yet, then you can just write it a few words, or perhaps this can be used for more than one behavior. It is very important in order to get appropriate data that you include the date and time. This information can help us understand if there's patterns regarding a day of the week, even a day of the month, or a time of the day. In the activity and setting, this helps us see if there are particular activities or settings that could be triggers. So always include that data. And then there's antecedent. That's what's happened right before the behavior occurs. Okay? You want to include as much information as is necessary for people to understand what's going on. But also you don't want to spend a whole lot of time writing. It's okay to use abbreviations as long as you're going to remember what those are. So if somebody has questions, they can ask you. Here I wrote X instead of the student's name. Sometimes people just put the first letter of the name to save time. And then when you do the behavior itself, it's important to kind of write what you see there. Again, if this is something that you've defined somewhere else in behavioral terms, then it's fine to use whatever abbreviation or title you've used, but not to say something like they got angry or they had a tantrum, because that could look very different from one person to another. Actually writing what you see is important because then everybody can recognize and understand what that behavior means. When you do the intensity, you may have defined that, and I'll go over that in a minute. I put an M here to mean medium, and so you want to define those intensities because what means medium in one situation may be different than the other. I've included some examples here. So sometimes we're talking about a behavior that has a volume, and so low might be only heard within that room. Medium can be heard outside the hallway with a closed door, and high may mean that it can be heard outside the building altogether or down the hall within another room that has a closed door. In addition, if it's something like aggression, whether that's self-injurious behavior, so they are causing harm to themselves, or if it's aggression against somebody else. Low may leave no marks at all. Medium would be like leaving marks that would disappear within a day, and high could be leaving marks that are longer than a day. For some individuals, low could mean leaving marks that last less than a day, and high could be breaking the skin or leaving lasting bruises that take multiple days to heal. So these definitions of intensity are very customized depending on the behavior itself. It's important to include the duration. not only for data, because if we want to see growth, it may be that we see the duration of the behavior is decreasing, but also for that definition of the behavior as we're first gathering information to know that that duration could last. It may be from 5 seconds to 20 seconds is very different than a duration that is from 5 minutes to 2 hours. And when you look at the consequence, remember you are not necessarily talking about a consequence that is being applied, like I made him sit in timeout or something like that. It's oftentimes the natural consequence that occurs. This information helps us understand what the function of the behavior could be, because remember, behavior communicates. This is how kiddos are getting their needs met. Even maladaptive behaviors that we don't want to see, are communicating something. It's getting a need met. So we need to understand what need are they meeting with this behavior. That helps us understand what an appropriate replacement behavior would be. So um, if the behavior is that when Mary tried to take the ball from Susie, Susie hit Mary. One consequence might be that she had to sit out at recess, but the other consequence may be that she was then left alone. And so she could be hitting peers in order to escape that peer demands for sharing the ball. And so it's important that we're clear on the consequence here so that we can really understand why they are engaging in that behavior. If you have any questions regarding how to collect data, be sure to communicate those questions right away. This data can really be helpful. The more data we can get, the better, and it can just help paint that picture and help develop a behavior plan that is effective and appropriate.